Sir, now the question is, you've been also advocating that India can be a big supporter and can assist the energy needs not only of our own population but also of the global south. And you have said multiple times that we would like to share our innovations and all these things in the energy sector which are low cost and which can really benefit and bring about large scale transformation in fellow developing countries. So on this front, sir, I would like to mention a couple of things for our viewers. One is the India-Bangladesh friendship pipeline that has been inaugurated. There's also India-Nepal petroleum pipeline, and hopefully many others that we are going to lay across our region for energy connectivity and trans-border trade and all these things. Now this is where, as India's own production and refinery capacity and all these grow, I suppose we'll be able to do a lot more in terms of South-South cooperation. And on that front, India can also be a leader, sir. And what are your thoughts on? You've also mentioned that even at the G20 we can create large-scale, energy groupings centered around the interests of the global south, the voice of the global south. You've addressed them, energy ministers. So what is the signal you're getting from poorer countries, and how are they looking up to India? Because traditional notion is India is a buyer of oil, India is a buyer of gas, India itself is dependent on outsiders. But now we're trying to turn it around and say India can actually help others too in these fields. This is a big transformation, sir.
No, there are 2 or 3 separate processes. When you talk of the global south, you have a much broader canvas in mind. When you talk about the Indo-Nepal pipeline, which when the Prime Minister of Nepal was here, we signed that. I exchanged an agreement with my counterpart from Nepal. Or you talk about Bangladesh. I mean, this is where energy will come in from a pipeline from us going into Nepal. There's already one pipeline. We are sending up 2 stations also. That's a very different kind of thing. Then you mentioned Bangladesh. But then, even where you don't have pipelines, like Sri Lanka, I think we've given something like $4 billion of credit in some form. I don't remember the exact figure.
Right. After the financial crash.
But today, India is not just oil and gas. I mean, there's something called Ujjwala. You've given 9 crore 60 lakh Ujjwala connections. I mean, at a time when, I was just now with the executive director of the International Energy Agency, Fatih Birol, and he was saying that in his speech. What India has gone and done inside, in the cooking space, where the most pollution takes place, where our mothers and sisters are in the kitchen, that's one. But you've done
the solar.
That's also, but I mean, even Ujjwala. I mean, gas. I mean, we got 14,000 kilometers of pipeline in 2014. We are taking it up to 33,000. I mean, your gas LPG connections were 14 lakhs crores, and they are now 32.8 lakh crores. So India's story is on a much broader canvas than buying oil. No, first of all, our own oil. Look at your refining capacity. Refining capacity is 252 million metric tons. You're taking it up to 450. Somebody asked me this question the other day, but when you go away from fossil, no, your refineries will be making green hydrogen. But I think the real story is still to come. It is the green hydrogen fuel cell. Because as I said, if you bring down the cost of per unit of green solar energy, and you've got electrolyzer manufacturing here, you can deal with scale.
So last question, you've already spoken about the transition to green. You've said that there are 2 worlds. There's the present world, the one which is still primarily dependent on fossil fuels, and then the world that is coming. And the bridge between this is the transition in the global scenario. India is rising at a time when this transition is happening. Your closing thoughts on how India is positioning itself as an energy power in the global order in this kind of transitional moment?
I'll give you 3 things. One is not my assessment. BP Outlook, International Energy Agency, they're all saying between 2020 and 2040, whatever increase in demand is going to come globally, 25% is going to come from India. So my friend, all I'm telling you is if 25% of the additional demand is going to come, you're already part of the discussion.
A big player,
yeah, so if 25% of the additional demand is also going to come from India, you are there. Secondly, I think you have demonstrated your commitment to those Paris goals, etc., etc. And everybody is today, what is the nature of the discussion? Yes, you got a net zero till 2070, but your major companies today, 2 of them sitting there, OMCs, GAIL and Oil India, they have 2040 commitment, and IOCL has a 2046 commitment. Now everybody says you should do it quicker, but there are guys who've taken 2050 commitment when they should be able to do it by 2025.
Yeah.
So we are saying you also go forward, and then we will also come back. But that's, I'm not scoring points. I am saying India will ensure availability, affordability, and sustainability, because the world ultimately has to transition to green energy. I think that's an imperative, but it cannot transition through what I call abrupt decisions. Fossil fuels close one day. No, you have to accelerate. And I think the chairman, the executive director of the IEA made a very nice statement. He said that last year, because of the disruption of the war, Russia-Ukraine, last year was the fastest year in terms of the last few, in terms of the acceleration of transition to green energy. And India is that story.